Hey guys, what's up and welcome to a new Tesla update video. So as usual, yeah, let's just go over the market. Let's talk about Tesla, see what happened, what we can kind of figure out from this move that we just had. Pretty much closing out the week as well. And yeah, we'll see where this takes us. Man, what an absolute wild last 3 days of the week. Pretty much just plummeting quite a decent amount, like pretty much from the very highs to the very lows that we actually touched. We dropped about 13% in 3 days. That's quite a bit, right? That is almost like 5% every single day, like, or close to it, not too far, like 4% every single day, which is a lot, right? But like I said several times, I've been warning you guys about this for a long time. Also, I specifically mentioned when you start seeing extremely stupid comments in the videos, like my video, other videos as well, not just my video, but like in general, like stock videos, I guess. When you see very stupid comments like the ones I've been pointing out to you guys, I've said this every time you see them. Be careful, the top is probably extremely close and like right around the corner, and it's pretty much been happening every single time. So hopefully this move hasn't been too much of a surprise to you guys. I will admit it went a little bit steeper. It didn't go steeper than I thought, it just went faster than I thought, and that's a pretty common problem I have with this market, where the moves sometimes just happen so fast, like they're really fast, especially red. But anyways, as I said, whenever you see this much green guys in a row, like I said before, we had like 11 green bars in a row. Well, not in a row, but of the 12 green bars, 11 were of the 12 total bars, 11 were green, which is insane, right? And I said how that usually means that once the red comes, and it will, that probably means that it's going to be quite aggressive. And that's exactly what we got this week, right? A very aggressive red from Tesla, essentially playing catch up to the market, though the market itself was also quite not good. But yeah, now let's finish off the week and let's figure out what the hell is in store for us for next week. So, ladies and gentlemen, Tesla ending the day down 4.6%, pretty much moving another same percentage as it did yesterday. Actually, might be even more. Closing out at 275 and 34 cents compared to the market itself. I mean, the NASDAQ was doing 1.6%, so Tesla definitely underperforming the market, which again I personally think is Tesla kind of playing catch up to the market right now, because it held really strong around here and now it's just catching up to where the market already did. That's why it's moving down a bit more aggressive than the market itself, right? Because technically the Tesla should have won maybe like 3% relative to the market today, not 4.5%, over 4.5%, right? So that's just something else to consider. Now ultimately, guys, the overall time frame, I do want to make this extremely clear. The overall structure is still looking overall quite weak, right? You can see the RSI is essentially at the exact same lows as it was over here, even though the stock itself is higher on the daily. So it's looking ultimately weak on the longer time frame, which I strongly believe that by the end of October, somewhere around the end of October or early November, I do think we will be much lower than we are today. I don't know exactly how much lower, because Tesla has been acting a little bit strangely ever since these moves up here, so it's hard to predict exactly where we'll go. But like if we don't at least come down to like this gap fill, at least I'll be pretty surprised. Honestly, it wouldn't be surprised to even see maybe like come over down to this red line, this 225. I am slightly less bearish overall in terms of like how low I thought it might go. Like I was saying, how I wouldn't be surprised to you and maybe see like 185. Personally, I don't know, that feels a little bit less likely to me. I'm not removing it out of the picture. I just feel like it's a little bit less likely. But I wouldn't be surprised if at some point by again end of October, early November, somewhere around there, give or take, that Tesla potentially comes down to somewhere maybe around like honestly, maybe even around like this kind of 230 to 220 range. Like that wouldn't completely shock me. We'll see, of course. We'll see. It's hard to determine that, of course, and give an exact price and date, because that's almost impossible. But overall, again, I want to make it very clear the structure is looking bearish. We broke below the trend lines that we were in. The only possible thing you can potentially even consider is something like this, though. I would say this is like the last line of hope right here for bulls, if you will. Something like this, give or take. Like this is not the most perfect line in the world, but this is just a very rough example. You can also make the argument that it's like something like this instead, right? Whatever. But the point is that something along the lines of this right here, you can make an argument that is the last line of defense for the bulls that they want to hold. However, with that being said and done, I do personally believe that maybe not exactly right away, right here, right on Monday, but I do believe that we will get a bounce extremely soon. Like it honestly could be as early as Monday. Probably by Tuesday, though, I think is where the bounce might start. Now, will this be the bounce that, it takes us to all-time highs? Absolutely not even remotely close. However, I wouldn't be surprised if the bounce, so for instance, let's say for Tesla, assuming this right here, today's move is the low, right? Let's just for now assume that we're not going lower than we went today. Where could the bounce potentially take us if we do actually bounce from here and we don't make a lower low? Well, to me, I personally would be first eyeballing this level right here of about $288. That would be the first level I would be eyeballing, followed by 293, followed by pretty much 300. Those are the three major levels I would personally be eyeballing, though I'd be surprised if we go all the way up to 300. We honestly might. I wouldn't say it's completely impossible, but the main two levels I would be paying attention to is 288 and this like 293-ish levels, not exactly to that, decimal, but that general level is where I would personally be paying attention to, though it's not completely impossible to go to 300 as well, right? It's just, in my opinion, not the most likely outcome. The most likely being, again, one of these two levels that just said over here. That's kind of what I'm seeing at the very moment. So I've personally entered a bunch of bullish positions. I have entered shares on Tesla. I've bought 100 shares, pretty much right around this 275 to 273 level. Like I've been buying in that range right there. I can still obviously buy more. Like I'm not all in bullish or anything like that. I have entered, a decent amount. I'm not gonna lie. I have entered a fair amount, pretty much banking on the fact that somewhere around here we should be bouncing. Again, whether it's like literally on Monday or maybe even Tuesday, but I do believe that the bounce is pretty much around the corner. And we'll see where it takes us, of course, right? Could be completely wrong. I will make this very clear, not financial advice. Obviously make your own decisions, follow your own, plan or game plan, if you will. I don't want anyone to copy me in what I'm doing because, again, if things go wrong, things will go wrong. You might not know what to do, right? So just, you shouldn't be copying me. But I am pretty much expecting a bounce relatively soon, like extremely soon, right around the corner. And that's why I've entered those positions. I'm not going to go over all of them because I have entered quite a decent amount, like one put sell here, one put sell here, one here, some shares here. I actually entered even a small bullish position on Apple where I sold the 150 put for next Friday, just things like that, right? I opened up a bunch of these small positions at different like levels and stuff like that. Some of them longer date, some of them shorter date, but mainly because, again, I personally think we should be looking for a potential bounce, right? So another example you can look at is right here. So unfortunately, like on the 30-minute chart or even 15-minute, we can talk about. So on the 15-minute, you can see as Tesla fell substantially lower than this level, the RSI actually did not go as low as yesterday's level, right? You can see it is slightly making a higher low, even though the stock made a substantial lower low compared to this up here. So that right there is sort of developing a slight bullish divergence, right? If you increase it right here, you can see this RSI went slightly higher as well, also making another bullish divergence. So as the stock keeps going downwards, the RSI in the 15-minute is slowly making higher lows, higher highs. It has become a little bit less, a little less sexy, if you will, on the chart. The longer time frame you go, like the 30-minute is not looking as hot because it did make a lower low, but it did make a higher high off of this move, even relative to yesterday's move, which is good. So that's kind of, starting to make those bullish divergences that we want to see. But again, as you go in the higher time frames, the 1 hour, the 2 hour, the 3 hour, it's not looking as convincing, not yet, right? It really isn't. So that's the only part that I would say is slightly unfortunate, so which is why I'm not like super convinced yet. But, we are seeing a lot of, buying pressure starting to come in around this general level, which is to be expected, right? You can see there was a lot of like buying and selling happening around here, even around here a little bit, right? So, it is an area of contention, right? Same thing over here, all the way back here. This is a pretty decent area of supply and demand. In this case, it should be, of course, demand because it's acting as a support, not as a resistance. So essentially, based on all this, again, I want to make it very clear. It does seem like we want to start looking for the bounce. It's just, I wouldn't say the bounce is extremely obvious yet. Like the signals aren't the most obvious that, yeah, it's going to happen here, like 90% sure. I would say it's about a 60% chance that we bounce from here and start moving upwards, at least to some level. Maybe even just this gap fill, this 288, would be a decent level to look at. But essentially those Fibonacci levels that I showed you guys earlier, which I'll quickly revisit one more time, is essentially what I would be paying attention to. The first of which essentially being the gap fill that I just mentioned. After that being 293. Those are the first two levels we'll worry about for now. If we pass those levels, then we'll talk about what's after that. But for now, that's the levels I would be paying attention to, and that I would be very kind of laser focused on, if you will. So yeah, that's kind of what I'm seeing, guys. Again, shorter time frames showing some nice, beautiful looking bullish divergences, looking like we want to rally, but the slightly longer time frames not looking as good. So maybe what we'll get potentially is instead a short-term rally, maybe like sometime in the first half of next week. Maybe Monday could be slightly red. In fact, I actually personally believe Monday might be still red. I just think it'll be very slightly red. I don't think it'll be like this crazy red we've been having here. I think it'll be like at worst maybe a better percent or so, right? And then I think off of that, that will start setting up the bullish divergences. I think then we'll bounce. We'll probably start to rally. And then, that, in my opinion, we'll see where that goes, depending how high, how fast. We'll, talk about it as it happens. I've seen some projections talk about how we might get a rally up until like Wednesday, maybe Thursday, and then we'll fall down about to the same level, if not slightly lower, which if that happens, that could be a decent time for the longer time frames, like the 1 hour, the 2 hour, to start setting up their bullish divergences. Because essentially what I would expect to happen is if the stock were to do this, and then we come down maybe even a little bit lower, and then we kind of go up higher like this, as an example, for instance, if this were to play out, what I would expect on the RSI, let's say on the 1 hour, to make it a bit easier, is I would expect it to go up a bit higher, and then I'll expect it to come down. And even though the stock went lower, I would expect the RSI to come down higher, or make a higher low, which would set the bullish divergence, which is exactly what I'd want to see. And then I think would be like real confirmation that maybe the reversal of the trend is finally here for the next couple of weeks. So that's another example of what I could personally potentially see happening. However, with that being said and done, I personally still believe that we might get a bit of a rally sometime, maybe Monday, but probably Tuesday, Wednesday, maybe even Thursday as well. Before potentially a bit more red happens a little bit longer, pretty much come back to roughly the same lows that we just had, maybe slightly lower. And then from there, again, those bullish divergences should start setting up. This is just a projection. I want to make it very clear, just a guess, but it's just what I can see happening. And then I think from there, we'll get a rally into October. And I think the first half of October-ish, 2 to 3 weeks of October should be pretty bullish. And then I think the last, 2-ish weeks of October should be quite bearish, and maybe even the first week of November should be quite bearish. And then after that, hopefully we start getting our actual bounce where we can, actually start bouncing up as opposed to having these like dead cat bounces, essentially. But yeah, that's kind of what I'm seeing, guys. So, a lot of information. Hopefully, it makes a lot of sense to some level, I guess. But yeah, the weekly chart obviously looks quite hideous, nothing to really write home about. Let's just say that. But yeah. That's kind of what I'm seeing, ladies and gentlemen. Another thing to pay attention to is the fact that the VIX actually broke out extremely aggressively, but then it got sucked back in. I actually didn't even realize this. It did get sucked back in, which is good for the market if you wanted to rally. So I was selling puts on all this green because this is the volatility being increased, which means, the puts that I'm selling at least are worth more, which I'm happy about. So this is really, really good. So the VIX starts collapsing while we get this little bit of a short-term rally. This means that this will probably come down to these levels over here. So the VIX, I personally wouldn't be surprised if it does come down pretty much within the first half of next week or something like that. Somewhere to around like, these levels right here, roughly, give or take, right? I wouldn't be surprised if it comes down somewhere around between 29 to 27, right? Somewhere in that range is where I personally think it'll come back down, probably, bounce off of this and then ultimately break out. And that's when I think the real drop will probably start taking place. So the VIX can be something like this, get an actual breakout successfully, come back, retest, and then this is where I think the major second part of this crash is going to start happening, which will be pretty much the second half of October or something like that, give or take, right? So that's kind of what I'm seeing, guys. Let me know what you think down below. Again, want to make it very clear, none of this is financial advice. Make your own decisions. I'm making my own decisions. I don't want anyone to copy me. I don't want anyone to follow me. If you do, it's completely your choice. Never forget that. So make sure you know what you're doing. But all that being said and done, ladies and gentlemen, I'm feeling pretty bullish right now overall. Again, that's not to say we might not get a little bit more red. That's fine. I'll enter a couple more bullish positions if I need to. But ultimately, I'm feeling pretty okay right now. I think that the short-term bounce is right around the corner, and I'll be looking forward to that sometime in the first half of next week. So until then, hope you guys have a great weekend, and I'll see you next time. Peace.